Hello everyone. I'm seeing lots of people, especially beginners, overcomplicating landscape photography. They're going too heavy on the gear, getting too obsessed with some of the technique that's involved as well, and just making landscape photography more difficult than it needs to be. I want to simplify the process of landscape photography for you, so it's less focused on gear, more focused on getting out there and doing it. First tip I have for you is that you don't need all of the wide angle lenses and super long zoom lenses and all that kind of stuff. A simple setup like this is a Canon 60 Mark I with a 24-105. You can do so much with a simple setup. It's easy to think that you need to have a wide, a mid, a telephoto, maybe even a super telephoto lens, because you see a lot of professional landscape photographers using that kind of gear. Even if you speak to people that are full-time landscape photographers, most of them will tell you that they spend most of their time on one lens and the other lenses are there because sometimes they need them. For me, I can do 90% of what I do just with this mid-range zoom. And in fact, I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to consider just bringing a mid-range zoom with me. When it comes to tripods, a simple sturdy tripod is all you need. I'll put the model up with the one I use and you can get them dirt cheap used now. Going beyond that, most of the time you don't even need a tripod. Let's be real about this. Why would you need a tripod? The only time you need a tripod is when your shutter speed is going slower than you can hand hold. And that even applies to if you're bracketing your exposures, if you know how to do that. You can actually do that handheld as well. This picture here was a 3 bracket handheld exposure. It works just fine doing it handheld as long as you pay attention to the frame that's going to have your minimum or slowest shutter speed, that's at a hand holdable shutter speed for you. And what you want to remember as a rule is that the slowest shutter speed should be the same as the focal length. So if you're at 50 millimeters, 50th of a second is probably the slowest you're going to want to hand hold at. And that's different with mirrorless cameras. If you've got IBIS, you can even test with your camera just to see how slow you can handhold the shutter reliably. When you don't use a tripod, you'll find yourself moving around more, taking more different compositions and coming away with more shots. But sometimes you absolutely need to have it, especially when you're dealing with lower light exposures. So it can be worth investing in one. And my next tip is that bad weather is actually often better than good weather. When we see the weather forecasts, when we're on holiday or we're going somewhere, we often look for the perfect weather to go out and do our landscape photography. But that doesn't make the most interesting light. In fact, most of the most interesting light happens in between rainstorms. Stormy days with the clouds are low, with the winds a little bit higher, you can get fantastic images from the clouds. Like this picture that I'm showing you now, this was just taken in the afternoon, and because I knew that these storm clouds were going to be low, they're going to be smashing into the hills, rolling down them, and you get these fantastic effects from the clouds. So don't just assume that you have to have a bright sunny day. In fact, those often make for pretty boring pictures. It's often the bad weather that gives us the stuff that we really want to look at and makes us think, wow, that looks incredible. It's dramatic. It's got impact. And we want our landscape photos, if we can possibly do it, to have impact and create a mood. And that doesn't always have to be just a sunset or a sunrise. But speaking of sunsets and sunrises, when I go to locations, something that I notice again and again and again is that people are turning up when I'm leaving because they've missed it.
All day long, this area is packed with photographers, and at the best time of day with the best lighting, I'm the only one here. Everyone else has gone home for dinner.
When you look at the sunrise times in your area, when it says sunrise, that means the sun has risen. You want to be in position a good half an hour or 45 minutes before that, which means you need to be turning up a good bit of time before that as well, which means that you're probably going to be walking in the dark to get to where you want to be. So I strongly advise you invest in a head torch so you can see what you're doing and use it on one of the brighter settings that it has. This will make your life so much easier when you're trying to move around. And be careful, but getting into position early or sticking around long enough is vital. This brings me on to the time of year when we shoot. Now, I'm aware that my viewers are from various different countries, but if you're living in a country that has a winter or an autumn kind of months, those are often the best months to do landscape photography. The reasons for this is a few reasons. What you get in winter is you get a low sun. It never really gets that high in the sky. That kind of means you can shoot throughout the entire day. On days when you've only got 6 or 7, maybe 8 hours of daylight, You've got really long periods of time in a day when you can shoot. That low sun has a quality to it. When a light comes in from a side angle, which is what's happening when the sun is low, it creates shadows. So as it comes in from the side, it hits a mountain, lights up one side of it, and creates a shadow on the other side of it. When the sun is high in the sky, you don't get that and everything looks flat. So that low sun gives us that shape that we want in our landscape. It's not just about the color from sunrise and sunset. Even if you don't get a good sunrise or sunset, just being out in that low sun can really make a difference. This picture that I took in Scotland was actually taken quite early in the afternoon, but the sun is low and it casts this dramatic light through the valley. So this isn't a sunset picture, this is just a low winter sun picture. And so you get these incredible lighting effects in winter, and that's why it's so much better. Conversely, in the middle of summer, when people think, tons of light and blue skies don't really help us very much. It's a very powerful color that kind of disrupts the image a lot, but we get this light that's top down, and we don't really want that. I think overall it's easy to summarize this and say the worse the conditions is usually better for landscape photographers. So winter, and not necessarily the best day in winter, can make for some really good photographs. And my next tip for you is more about mindset, and that is to just not feel intimidated by what other people are doing and the gear that they're using and the kind of locations that they get to. Whether you can just get to your local park, which is something that I've had to do quite often. These pictures now are just from my local park. I've just picked the right times of day and the right times of year to go there to get these pictures. But I can't always get away to the Lake District and Scotland. These are hundreds of miles away for me each time I go there, and it's a big performance and it takes days. You're not alone in that. It's not easy to get to these fancy locations and do these things. But the point is to get out and do stuff and not feel like what you have isn't enough. The outdoors is for everyone to explore and enjoy, and you should be bold. If you go out there and make things happen, you will get results. And none of that is dependent on the gear that you're using. It's all dependent on you and your attitude, and that you want to go out there and do something and not feel like, not sure today. Can I be bothered to go out there? Can I really be bothered to go and do anything? Will it be worth it? You have to try, and you have to keep trying. I have so many bad landscape photos that I don't want to show you. I have so many days out and trips that I've made, which have just been a disaster, really, that haven't worked out, because landscape photography is a bit like finding a needle in a haystack. Most of the time, what you do isn't going to work, but if you can enjoy the experience of doing that and still have a good time doing it and not be frustrated by poor results, you will be rewarded through repetition and practice with really good weather sometimes for photography, stunning locations, and you'll get those pictures that you want. But don't think that for the people that are going out that it's working every single time. It's just the nature of what we're doing. It's very hard for everything to come together to get a good picture. We are becoming better photographers in the process because there's always lessons to be learned. Even if sometimes it seems obvious the mistake you made in hindsight, that's okay too. These mistakes that we make are natural, and it happens to all of us. Like, I've just come back from a long landscape photography trip in Scotland, and several of the days that I went out, I walked for a really long time. I tried taking pictures, and some of the stuff that I took was just not worth taking. But in the process, I had a good day out and I enjoyed my time doing it. That's the attitude that you need to have, is that you're a doer, you're a creator, and you're someone that goes out and tries to make things happen, because every now and then it pays off.